Oh, definitely. The faces changed because we lost so many, and you had all these people that took their place, and it just wasn't the same anymore. And I'll tell you about me and Dodge and Bruce. Sitting out on the bunker one time, and they smoked weed. I never smoked a weed in my life. Didn't know what it was, and I said, "Here, take a puff of this too." Make you forget about things. And it was sunny, nice, and we just sitting on top of the bunker just looking out. So I took a few drags off there, and after a while, it just took over. And I looked out there and I saw Frank Sinatra riding a bull. I said, look at that bull. And once I came down off of that high, I never touched it again. Never ever in my life did I ever touch one. And I never drank a beer in my life again. But that was awesome. And I knew all those guys smoked pot, weed, or whatever you want to call it, because they're always acting funny. You heard stories about people coming home when they landed in California, they were spit on, but I never encountered that. And I didn't let something like that bother me, and I didn't have, I was over there with a job to do, and I did it. And I didn't have, at that time, I didn't have no nightmares or anything like that. So they sent me from Vietnam to Fort Riley, Kansas. And if you ever heard about Fort Riley, Kansas, it's not a good place to be. Because going from straight leg infantry to mechanized, when you have mechanized infantry, you got to pull all this maintenance. All that's time consuming in the motor pool. Did not like Fort Riley, Kansas. Plus it was the coldest place on earth. No trees in Fort Riley. In Kansas it gets cold in the wintertime. But anyhow, I decided that in 70, I got home in 68, around 30 September, Fort Riley. And I wasn't there 2 months. We went to Germany on the first reforger in 69. And man, it was cold. It was cold over there. And I felt like I was missing something, And I was letting, why should I be at Fort Riley, Kansas, working on these vehicles, and I should be doing something else. So I volunteered to go back. And so when I volunteered to go back, I elected to be with a MACV advisory team. You have 5-man teams, just like a special forces per se. You got your medic, you got your heavy weapons and light weapons. Anyhow, I was a heavy weapons man, and I was on a team 214, and we was out of Tuyua. So our job was to teach the popular forces, tactics, ambushes, and that's what we do. We go out on ambushes with them, and I teach them how to use the M60 machine gun and all that heavy weapons, And so now these popular forces and regional forces are not, just like civilians. You can't depend on them. So one night was I had been there 90 days. And we just happened to be in a base camp with another team. 10 Americans. And at about 2 o'clock in the morning, all hell broke loose, You hear all these mortars and grenades going off, So we had a bunker right outside my door where I slept. And I made a mistake. I grabbed my 16, and then I ran to the door and stood up, and I should have crawled. And once I stood up, the guy threw a grenade, and it landed in front of me, and I took a big chunk through my eye. And it stunned me at first, but I was able to crawl to the bunker. And man, that lasted about 3 hours. And we had to call gunships in. Man, it was terrible. and they blew up all our Jeeps, everything. And it went on until daybreak. And, you know, 2 o'clock to daybreak's a long time, man. And we had the Koreans, they were about half a mile away on another hill, and they would not fire illumination for us. Would not, simply refused, you know, so we had to do it ourselves. And so they medevaced me out of there that morning, threw me on a chopper, took me to Quinyon, but flying up to Quinyon, I looked down there and I seen all these bodies in green uniforms, you know, just laying all over the place, man. It was right back going up to Quinyon. So I got there, and then they took me. They did an operation on my eye. Then I stayed there for a couple of days, and then I went to the Philippines for about a week. Then they brought me home. But first I went from the Philippines to Japan. And I remember before I left Japan, the golfer, Gary Player, he was, you know, visiting the troops in the hospital there. And I remember shaking Gary Player's hand. And from there, you know, I was sent to Fort Gordon, Georgia. Did a couple more operations on my eye. And then they sent me back to Fort Hood. Then that was in 71. And in 78, I went back to the hospital and they took my eye out because I couldn't handle it no more because of pressure. So, but consequently, I went on to stay in the Army because it was my life. And every 3 years, I had to have a medical waiver to stay in the Army. And they let me stay in 27 years. When I'm retired Sergeant Major. I was probably the only one-eyed Sergeant Major on active duty at that time. Well, you know, not until about really 2005 I started having these dreams and flashbacks about the guys, you know, and a couple times, you know, in between the time, you know, while I was still on active duty, I'd go to the wall, you know, and look up, you know, and that panel there, that panel that stands out, looked at all those names on there, you know, wonder what they would be doing today. And I can remember J.J. Jarvis, he was one of my machine gunners. And after he got killed, in a few days, you know, I got a letter from his sister, I believe, and she wanted to know how J.J. got killed, you know, and all that stuff. And, you know, it's a hard thing to do to try to tell somebody, you know. But I did the best I could. And I asked her, and I, you know, received no more reply from that. Foley and Graves, Pozo, Bowman, West Virginia Bowman, and Joseph. Now Joseph Bowman was a heck of a man. He was young, you know, and he was my platoon leader. He'd tell me, you know, take your squad and go recon this area here, you know. But he was a good leader. I liked him. Pozo was sharp because Pozo understood about this high, and he knew what he was doing. And Pozo was an older guy. I think he was 42, and he was an E7. And Pozo, he was good. John Pozo out of California. But Brendan was an excellent leader. Brendan was the type of guy that sometimes when he went out with us, he was fearless. You know? Thought a lot of Brendan. Carrasquela was one of my guys. He was one of my assistant machine gunners. And Kenneth Hand, that was my other handler, but I don't know what happened to him. Yeah, in 2005, you know, started having these dreams, you know, and here lately, I think I'm in the Army. I dream about I'm in the Army every night, you know, somewhere with different folks, you know. And it all has to do with the Army. You know, they're not, you know, it's kind of weird how that happens, though. You know, PTSD and all that other stuff. You know. Well, if we had the guys that we went over with, if we could go back 40 years or 30 years, you know, and if we were to go to Iraq as a company, I look and sometimes I wonder what we may have accomplished, because, you know, we just click together, you know what I'm saying? Other units, you just, you know, people come, people go every day, you know. But I think that was a close-knit company, the people that we went over with. Of course, when you train for 6 months, and then you're together for at least, you know, all that time, there's a close bond there, no doubt. And that's the reason, you know, when we all get together here, the ones of us, you just think it seemed like it was only yesterday, you know. Even though 40 years have gone, you know. It's just amazing. We had a good first sergeant and good company commander. We had good platoon leaders. You know, it was just amazing. It was like a band of brothers. You know, when you look at the Band of Brothers, you've seen it, all sequences, right? Can't help but think, you know, that was us in Vietnam. It's just like yesterday, you know. Some of them got a little ugly, some of them got a little older, you know, but hey, just love them as much as I did back then, you know. Just wish the other ones could have made it home too.